the Premier League has a problem on its hands. Now admittedly, it's not going to shake the league to its very core, but it could quite possibly detract from what is currently the most enthralling sports league in the world. 4.7 billion people worldwide watch the Premier League every season, making it the most watched association sports league in the world. This popularity derives from a few key aspects. However, the removal of just one of these could see the popularity of the league decrease dramatically. The first aspect are the fans, who each and every week travel the length and breadth of the country, supporting their side and selling out stadiums. And number two is the spectacle of the football itself, which holds a high standard and unmatched competitiveness in comparison to the rest of Europe. It is the combination of these two ingredients that breeds the best football spectacle in the world. However, a situation is arising that could see the quality of football begin to decline. In terms of the standard of footballers on show, this metric will always be dictated by money, and on the back of a £5.14 billion TV deal, it appears that the Premier League will continue to be able to fund the arrivals of world-class players and managers for the foreseeable future. A great strength of the Premier League is that this TV money is divided relatively fairly between all 20 sides, meaning that even the slightly smaller teams can afford top quality players. This creates a remarkably even league, in which every year a handful of teams could win the title, while at least half of the sides have a realistic fear of getting relegated. Even on the micro level, on any given weekend, the weakest sides in the league could pull off an unlikely upset on one of the high flyers. In other words, the gap between the top and bottom of the table is very small. And it is this uncertainty that brings viewers back week after week, but this could be under threat. The Premier League features an exclusive group of elite sides, commonly referred to as the Big Six, consisting of Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United and Spurs. Each of these clubs boast a number of world-class players respectively, as well as a much greater amount of financial pulling power than any other Premier League side. They are the effective super teams of the English game, and will routinely share the 3 domestic trophies and the qualification places for European football between them. Each year, the Premier League offers Champions League spots for the 4 highest placed sides, and as you will have deduced, 6 doesn't go into 4. The fight for these spots is both unpredictable and enthralling, but one thing that is almost certain is that a combination of the Big Six will eventually fill out those top 4 spots. As for the other 14 teams, well, the chances of a Champions League place are close to 0. The Europa League, the Champions League's less prestigious side act, does offer a potential route to Europe for the smaller sides. However, with only one guaranteed allocation for English clubs, the place will likely go to one of the Big Six sides that misses out on the Champions League. In short, for the 14 sides not part of the Big Six, the chances of going on a European tour are slim to say the least. But does this make the league boring? Well, no, not at all. The order that the Big Six finishes changes near on every year, leaving fans on the edge of their seat in excitement for the duration of the season. However, it is the exclusivity of this elite, impenetrable group that could have a detrimental impact on the bottom half of the table. And here's why. For the bottom to mid-table sides, the primary aim each season is to stay in the league, as doing so entails a whole lot of money. But what happens when you've secured your Premier League status for another year? Well, the natural aim would be to distance yourselves from the bottom and make a surge for the top half of the table, but doing so would cost a lot of investment into transfer fees and wages. And for what in return? Well, realistically, not that much. The European places have already been secured by the Big Six, while the difference in prize money between finishing 17th and surviving relegation, and 7th and missing out on European football, is just £20 million of revenue, a figure that in today's market doesn't exactly represent much value. Moreover, the investment into players needed to make that 10-place jump would far outstretch the 20 million they would recoup. In short, with the Big Six monopolising the European prize money, and measly incentives for finishing higher up the table for the smaller sides, it is no longer financially viable to be as competitive as possible. Instead, the most profitable business strategy would be to sell as many of the club's valuable assets as possible, and acquire as few replacements as possible, while still being able to stay in the league. But you know what they say, if you play with fire, you're going to get burnt. And last season, we saw some of the notorious penny-pinching Premier League sides face the consequences of a less than ambitious transfer policy. Southampton, Swansea, Stoke and West Brom had all been in the Premier League for the last 7 to 10 years each, and each had in that time either played in Europe or finished in the top 10. However, last season they occupied the bottom 4 spots in the Premier League, with all apart from Southampton now resigned to the Championship for next season. Their falls from grace were entirely catalysed by their lack of investment, and as a result, 3 Premier League constants and no more. However, this is a worrying trend. The 4 teams mentioned before are not the only ones sacrificing their full potential in order to line the pockets of their owners, and the more clubs that do so, the worse impact it will have on the competitiveness of matches. The Big Six will continue to invest heavily into their squads, as they have a chance of winning a title and playing European football every season. However, the rest of the sides could take the same route of the likes of Southampton and Swansea, as they decide to swap their best players for average replacements in the interest of making money. In turn, the small gap between the top and bottom of the table that has been a staple of the Premier League for years could begin to increase. The German, French and Spanish leagues already often feature the demoralising sight of 6, 7, 8 goals for one side, and as a result, viewing figures and ratings for those leagues aren't even comparable to the Premier League. The fans want to see attacking football and goals, but also a close-fought affair, in which the result isn't an inevitability. The unknown is the Premier League's greatest asset, and it needs protecting. Whether that means offering greater financial disparity between league standings, or more European qualification places, who knows, but it is a problem that could swell in the future. Having already lost 3 Premier League calibre sides last year, one hopes it will serve as a stark reminder for owners and boards that a tarnished image for the Premier League brand will have a negative impact on the values of their clubs.